we have, oh, she's out of the room right now. Lynette brought her mom, your mom, that's what I thought. She looks so young, I thought surely she wasn't.
Yeah, I know.
She's here from Michigan, and it's her birthday. So we're gonna sing happy birthday to her in just a minute. So everybody has your coffee, and I was gonna tell you, I realized that we're just coming off of vacation, because didn't get here, I like to be here at 8, and I didn't get here till about 8:15, not a car. And I thought everybody's having a hard time getting back into the swing of things. So it's good to see all of you. And so I was gonna tell you about my cup today, which says California. So Ron Hill brought these cups. These are those Starbucks cups, you know, from the place, like you go in, they have one where you are. And so he had a bunch of extras of different places, and so he brought them. So for the next, looks like about 10 weeks, I'll have a new cup.
You're gonna be traveling.
I'm gonna be traveling. So this one was California, the Golden State. Do you know why California is called the Golden State?
Yeah, what?
Well, obviously, the
Well,
gold
they
rush.
get the Golden Gate Bridge, go on?
Well, it is called the Golden Gate Bridge, but that's not why it's called
The Gold Rush.
Time I always wondered what that was.
Well,
They used to mine for gold there.
gold was one, but the other thing is, especially in Northern California, not so much in Southern California, but, you know, it rains 6 months out of the year, and then it never rains the other 6 months. I mean, never. And so there's lots of, come on in, there's lots of, the hills will be covered with the state flowers, the golden poppy. And so they'll be covered with that, you know, yellow because of the rain, and then they just, you know. And so that's one, but there are a lot of references, of course, the Golden Gate Bridge, but it was supposedly named because it's really orange, but they call it Golden Gate, so anyway. But it is the gateway, you know. Before that, to get from San Francisco over to like where we lived in Marin, you had to take a ferry. And then when the bridge was built, of course, you can go across and get there. So it is kind of the Golden Gate into that. Anyway, much more than you want to know. So Rita is Lynette's mom from Michigan. And we are glad that she's visiting with us today. It's her birthday. So we're going to sing happy birthday. Who can lead us? Who's anybody in the choir? Nobody here in the choir.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rita. Happy birthday to you.
And then more. Yeah, that's right. And then more.
I know I'm not in the choir.
Well, I think Liz has taught you well. I thought you did really well. So, and just that you had the courage to
How
serve.
old are you?
I wasn't going to ask that question.
75.
75. Whoa.
Girl, really good.
Well, yeah, I said you look way too young to be
Yeah.
75. So, and you know, I loved it when I wore masks because I would go shopping with my daughter, and this young woman said, "Are y'all sisters?"
Yeah.
I said, "Because you can't see my wrinkles." So, anyway, well, we're glad you're with us. And she was here last Sunday, and we're glad you stayed for your birthday. And so, very good. Anyway, that we were off for a couple of weeks, and so I wanted to talk to you all about what we're going to be doing in worship for the next 4 Sundays, for all the 4 Sundays of January. And that is, we're going to talk about what it means to offer extravagant hospitality. And I thought if we say that we do that, we probably ought to know what it is, right? And so I'm going to say that some of this in worship, but I've been reading a bunch, and I've found that I'm learning a lot of things I didn't know. And so there are lots of facets to what it means to offer extravagant hospitality, like in a church, even as individuals. And so I wanted to ask you, first we're going to talk about what's the worst experience you had going to a church in terms of hospitality or feeling welcome? What's your worst experience that you can think of?
Not being greeted by anyone.
You just walk in and nobody says a thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I went once when I was on sabbatic, when I was at Broadway, I decided I was going to spend some of that time going to churches that I would never go to otherwise, and so like mega churches and that kind of thing. And so we went, I won't name the church, but it's a big church. When you drive into the parking lot, they have golf carts that pick you up because it's so far to the front door.
Wow.
Well, anyway, so they had a Saturday night service. And so I told Terry, I said, let's go Saturday night service. So we go, and we were close enough we could walk to the front door. We walked in. No one said a word. We walked to the door of the sanctuary, and somebody was passing out, I mean, of course, it's such a big church, they don't know if we're a member or not. Nobody said a word. The church service, we did the service, and it was over, and we got up and walked out. No person there ever said, are you visiting, but how do they know? I mean, in their defense, if I usher at the Saturday night service, maybe I come to the morning service and I don't know who's a member and who's not. So I don't know what their method is, because I couldn't tell that night what it was, but I'm sure they must have some method. I mean, of course they ask you to fill out a visitor's card, but what if you don't, We're small enough that we know if somebody that's been coming or not, we know if somebody's visiting or not. Okay, somebody else, tell us an experience you had. You went to a church.
Well, I had an experience when I walked into a church one time, and they had pews just like we did. Well, I just went and just sat down in a pew, and then I got there probably like 10 minutes, and then somebody comes and tapped me on the shoulder, and they said, "Oh, by the way, I get there." And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm so sorry, I didn't know." And there was no sign that said reserve or nothing.
Right.
I just came in and just sat down. And then they asked me, "Oh, I get there. Do you mind shooting over?" And
Wow.
I said, "Oh, and me, I didn't mind." I said, "Oh, yeah, no problem." I just kind of picked up and slid over to the other side of the pew, and then I went back. Well, I kind of looked up and I said, "Wait a minute, I didn't." And I turned to look at the person that was sitting next to me, and I was like, "Well, what's so special about this person?"
Yeah.
And to me that just made me feel awkward. I just felt like, okay, you make you start here every day, and I didn't know it, and
Right.
I was new to the church. They didn't even come up, and I was expecting them to say, "Hey, I was expecting them to greet me and ask me a little bit more
Right.
about, are you visiting,
Yeah.
stuff like that." Not a word. I said, "Excuse me, do you mind moving over? This is my seat."
Yeah.
So I was just blown away by that, and after that, I never went back. Because I just felt like that, I was looked over,
Yeah.
they didn't even care that I was dead.
Right.
So,
Way back, like if you go to Virginia and some of those places that are very historic, that were around when the country was first started, like I've been to churches there where they had little doors to the pews. Do you remember? I mean, if you've seen this, and they would have someone's name on it. So like in Arlington, Virginia, I remember George Washington, that was George Washington's pew. So at least you would know that it's not open.
Right.
But I have heard people say the same thing, that somebody has their pew.
Yeah.
And you would think that if that person then would say, "Oh, are you visiting?" Because you don't know.
yeah, exactly. And they didn't say anything. You just told me, "Do you mind moving over?"
Just move.
Like all you did, move over. I was like, "Okay, all right, no problem." I just picked up
Just
my
move
stuff and
over.
move over.
Yeah, that's pretty
And then after that, I felt dejected by that at that point. I just did not feel any love there.
Yeah.
I never went back.
Yeah.
I just stopped going.
Okay.
You know.
All right, yes, ma'am.
To piggyback on what he said, it would seem that, I guess the Christian way, they have forgot that sharing is caring.
That's right.
And
That's
this
right.
belongs to God. and not us.
Right.
And
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you, and that is one of the first signs of, first ways we express hospitality is that we're just stewards of the church. It's not our church, we're stewards of God's church, and so nothing that is there is ours, but it belongs to God. Okay, somebody else, a bad experience of going to a church and you didn't feel welcomed, or, you know. And sometimes it's not that they do anything like that, like that. They just don't do anything. They just don't do anything. And you feel kind of weird. And I think it is harder in big churches because, like I said, but I would rather somebody say, oh, I've been going here a while, than to not greet them or not say, oh, so anyway. All right, so think about the best church experience you've had. What did that church do that made you feel very welcome? And it was, can you think of something they did that just made you feel welcome? Anybody?
Of course, it's here.
It's here, right? Well, I was hoping someone would say that.
Yeah.
Okay, but what was it?
Everybody they all came down, came out of the choir, and like, oh my gosh, who are all these people?
Yeah.
People I didn't know. The ones I knew was different, but
Yeah.
that's how I got to meet all you guys, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you just felt the just overwhelming,
Yes.
willingness to meet you and talk to you, and yeah. Okay, somebody else.
I went to a Pentecostal church a while back, and somebody got up and spoke in tongues,
Oh,
and I'm like asking the woman next to me, what's
Uh-huh.
going on? Because I'd never heard
Right,
it. She says,
right.
shh, just pray.
oh, just pray, okay.
So I sat there and I started praying, and another man got up and translated.
Told you what he said.
And I'm like, well, that's the question I had.
Mm-hmm,
And he just answered it.
mm-hmm.
And I was like, I started crying, and I got up and I was, I started to speak in tongues. And everybody from the church gathered around me and put their hands on me
Mm-hmm.
and all kinds of stuff. It was pretty neat.
Yeah. Yeah,
So they were very welcoming.
yeah. Okay. Well, the Bible says if you're gonna have somebody speak in tongues, you gotta have an interpreter.
Uh-huh.
So.
And it's usually not the same people.
Right. Okay. I think that kind of scares me, when somebody starts doing that, and I don't, because I've never experienced that. And when I was in college, I was a summer missionary in Los Angeles, and mostly with African American churches, and they're very warm and caring. But every church has its different way of doing things, and they do it a little differently. And I was young, and I watched every Sunday because I didn't want to make a mistake, because things were different than what I was accustomed to. I wanted to be gracious, and but sometimes when it's something we haven't experienced before, it's kind of frightening to us, or it makes us raises our anxiety a little bit. And are they going to expect me to do that? That was my first question: is will they expect me to do that? And sometimes that doesn't happen for us. And so anyway, all right, somebody else. What makes you feel welcome in more than just we're glad you're here? What is something that makes you feel welcome?
A hug.
Well, the one thing that I noticed about coming here was, I remember when I first came here, I realized after the service, I knew there were a group of men that came and invited out to lunch for the first time, which I thought was very nice. And that was my very first time in getting to know most of the people in the congregation.
Okay.
But getting invited to lunch is what really stuck to me.
Okay, so they came the very first Sunday and
Right.
said, come go with us to,
Yeah.
well, and I think, at Celebration, there are groups that go to lunch, but I don't think for the most part, I don't think they're cliquish kind of groups. I think they welcome somebody else to
Right.
come.
Right.
But they just, this is somebody, people I know, and we're going to lunch, but they welcome a stranger or a person that's
Right.
been. Okay, well, good. I'm glad to know they did that. That's
Yeah,
good.
and that kind of one of the things that I will never forget.
Yeah.
That was one of my very first memories,
Yeah.
coming here and knowing that day when they invited us to lunch, that was nice.
Yeah,
And I thought that was to me was extravagant hospitality to me.
absolutely. And I can remember one time, this is years ago, many years ago, before I was a ordained pastor. And so I decided I wanted to be more friendly and welcoming to people. And so these people visited our Sunday school class, and we asked them to sit with us. And it was this kind of situation. So I would say, so, you know, where are you from? California. So you're here for graduate degree. And I mean, it was I felt so awkward because you couldn't get them talking to you, you know, it's like, I'm trying to be friendly here. And and maybe they didn't need that. Maybe they just wanted somebody to they just wanted to come to church. I don't know, but I just can remember trying to get, okay, help me here, talk, you know, but they didn't. So.
And that's something that I think celebration will be a good thing, to have a welcoming committee. So when we see new people like that we should invite them to lunch, to something like that, like the experience I had. Because I think that what we should be doing in our congregation is to look out for people like that we can use that opportunity and that experience
Right.
to bring them, to make them feel more welcome.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that we can have a welcome committee, where we have a group of people that get to look for those newcomers and try to make that invitation.
Well, my hope is at the end of this 4 weeks, that then we will have some ideas about what some suggestions of things that might improve. I think we are a very welcoming church, but I think there's always room for more things. So keep that in your mind.
Oh, yeah,
And
that's something I think will do really well for us.
Okay, all right, somebody else. What's the thing that makes you feel most welcome?
A friendly smile.
A friendly smile. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think the hardest thing is if you just feel like you kind of felt like you were just dismissed, you know, like, you may be visiting, but I really don't care.
And then I think it's also good, though, to see a visitor, is to try to have someone come sit with them and just kind of introduce them, and that way they can kind of feel like they're a part. Because some people, that's the one thing that I find when I go to a new church, is that I don't know anybody.
Right.
So I feel alone. I feel like I literally have to put myself out there to say, hey, I'm Jay, I'm new, I didn't have to put myself out there.
Right.
Not in a place that I'm new to a new environment.
Right.
I didn't have to.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that's something celebration to start doing.
Yeah, and we are fortunate that we pretty much know if somebody's visiting. You know, we pretty much know this is a face I haven't seen or whatever. So that's good, because then we know the people that are visiting. All right, something else about hospitality.
It's not just what celebration has done for me, or one, but I can name time after time after time, different situations, whether it be illness or, what, watching what the church does
Right.
for those,
Right.
Di going through all of her stuff, and, when I first, I hadn't been here very long before I had breast cancer, and Barb's been through, head shaving parties. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
That's right.
And so,
That's right.
so it's not just what it's done for me, but I just watch everything everybody does for
Other people.
other people that, going through something.
Yeah, it's really an important thing. What were you gonna say?
Well, I just noticed that like after church service, we go through, everybody gets to hug you, but there's a group of us that'll stand out there and visit, and Lynette and I'll be standing out there and we'll be greeting everybody that comes out the door. some people have serious looks on their face, but we say, hey, good morning.
Yeah,
Welcome to celebration, and they light right up, and I
Yeah.
think that helps.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very good thing, a very good thing. And I think that opens the door sort of with people, you know. So the scripture today, there's two, and one is a story from the Old Testament, from Kings, 2 Kings, and it's about a mother needing help and with her child. And then the second one, though, is this is Epiphany. Who knows what Epiphany is? I know you
What is
know.
the what?
Epiphany.
Oh, me and Kurt talked about this morning. Oh, gosh, we were talking about that. I think it's so funny you brought that word up, because we were talking about that.
Well, today is, well, it was
The
actually
case
yesterday.
when the, we know about the wise men. The
Right.
wise men, yeah,
That's right.
that's what it is.
Yeah, when the
Yeah.
wise men,
Yeah.
so in the church, is the church, the big church, you know, the whole church. In the church calendar, there are 12 days of Christmas. And so Epiphany, this is the end of Christmas. So the church will still be decorated today, but this is the last day. After today, it'll be taken down.
But this is when the wise men actually showed up.
They show,
Jesus,
the
right?
story, right,
Yeah.
the story is, they show up, and it's an interesting story, and actually, in studying and thinking about it for today, it dawned on me that, you know, the wise men were strangers. They were outsiders. They weren't from Bethlehem, and they come out to see this baby. They're outsiders. And so it is the first in the life of Jesus, it's really the first example of extravagant hospitality. That these people come, they're receptive, they come, they worship the baby, they bring their gifts. And there's a lot we don't know about this story. We don't know, you know, we always say 3. That's probably because they brought 3 gifts. And so we always think 3 wise men. There could have been 15, we don't know. And they saw this thing in the sky. Who knows what it was exactly, but they thought it was a new star. And so they followed that star to, because they sense that something has happened, like a royal birth or something. So it's a very interesting story, and it's one, like many in the Bible, that we don't have a lot of the details, but there's still truth to be found there. There are still things we can learn about it. And, you know, we have taken that word epiphany, and if somebody says, I had an epiphany, what do you think that they mean?
A brilliant idea.
Like an aha moment, you know, oh, it's an epiphany, it just came to me. And so we use the word that way a lot too, not just to talk about the Bible story, but it is a very interesting story, and I think one that, I don't know, I mean, I think we have turned a lot of the stories about Jesus' birth, like I mentioned on Christmas Eve morning, that we make them into these picture-perfect events. You know, like if it doesn't fit in the creche that I have by the fireplace, it didn't happen, right? And so you have the wise men. And I remember last year I talked about Joseph and how a lot of nativity scenes don't even have Joseph.
Yeah.
Because
I remember that.
he's not that important to the story, right? We think. And so, so the wise men are kind of a part of that tableau, you know, that, oh, isn't that lovely? And it's very antiseptic, and it's very, you know, everything is, you know, a baby's just been born. If you've ever been around a newborn baby, if you've ever been around somebody having a baby, it's not quite that picture perfect most of the time. And I mean, ultimately it is if you have a little healthy baby, but it's not, there's, you know, as I said that day, there were probably moans and groans and, you know, about all that was going on, and they don't call it labor for nothing, I'm gonna tell you. So, it wasn't quite that. And she's not in the best of circumstances, I mean, really, you know, like a barn. I mean, I'm surprised she didn't say, Joseph, I'm not gonna marry you.
Well, Joseph was also very, very young too.
Well, we don't know.
No, I mean,
She was very young.
Yeah,
She was very young.
but like, I think I've read commentary that he's probably like 19, maybe 20, maybe they're older. But, I mean, that's what I've read. you
Yeah.
know,
He
that-
could have been, he was definitely a little, I say definitely, I mean, he was probably a little older. Mary could have been as young as 13.
Right, 13, 14, right, yeah.
And I just think, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you know, and they probably, neither one of them knew what they were doing. And so, anyway, but the wise men, we love to have them in the Christmas play and pageant, you know, and coming and with their gifts and wearing their bathrobes and, you know, a crown, and they come and they're bringing their gifts. And we don't really know exactly who they were. You know, people have thought they were all kinds of different things, but a scholar or a astrologer, or, you know, and then the other thing, which this happens to many things, that this whole tradition has been made up about it, that we don't know if it's true or not, but, you know, since in the church, there are some churches that they even have names, the three wise men, Melchior, and I can't remember them all. And they've given them names. And so that's a tradition that's grown up around it that could not even be true. But it's just a tradition of the story that is told about it. And so it makes it a nice story, but he's not mad. He's going to usher. So these things grow up in the church, and people tell them from one generation to the next generation to the next generation, and they may or may not be accurate. So today we're going to talk about the wise men and talk about it in terms of hospitality. And so anyway, like I said, I want you to be thinking as we go through this month about this whole idea of extravagant hospitality, and see if you come up with some other ideas, or you think about what it means to you or whatever, but that just think about it. And there's an old word like ruminate, just let it roll around in your mind as you think about it, as we talk about it. We're also going to do some things on Wednesday night related to hospitality. So when you think of hospitality, we've talked today about the church, what we do, what makes you feel welcome, what doesn't make you feel welcome. But hospitality, as I said, extravagant hospitality has a lot of facets. And it really means welcoming to the stranger, welcoming the poor, the needy. And I think we can sometimes do really well at when we say, what is it, hospitality? Well, that's being friendly, and that is a part of it. But it's also more than that. And so that's when sometimes we get stuck, is how do we do that? You know, how do we welcome people that are unhoused, or, you know. So anyway, a lot of parts of hospitality. And so the first part is not easy, but the first part is easier than some of the other parts, and for the church especially. And you know, this has been a problem for the church from the earliest days of the church, because most of the people that were in the church initially were Jews who had been, you know, followers of Christ or whatever, and so they are part of the early church. Well, then they have these people like Gentiles that show up that weren't raised as Jews. And it's like, oh, no, you've got to do this if you're going to be in the church. And so that was one of the biggest things that caused problems in the early church was, what does it mean to be, and they hadn't even, it was early enough, they probably hadn't even called them Christians, but what does it mean to be a part of this church, these followers of Jesus? Do you have to, remember the big controversy about men had to be circumcised because that's what Jews did, so you had to do that if you were going to be in the church? And other people were saying, no, we don't have to do that. And so that caused that whole issue of what does it mean to be a part of the church has been an issue since the early days. And it's still an issue. And I've told you this before, but that there's been a shift, at least in our time, because when I was growing up, you had to keep the rules before you could join the church. You had to know what the rules were, you had to do this, this, and this, then you could join the church. And now there's more of this feeling that people come to the church, they want to be a part, and then they learn about what it means to be a Christian, what it means to be a follower of Christ. They don't need to know all about that before they can be a part. So think about the things in your life that you have done where you learned after the fact. You know what I'm saying? How many jobs do you go to that you didn't know exactly how to do what you do, but you learned? And so the church, I think that's kind of which is, I think, a positive shift, is that you don't have to keep all the rules before we'll accept you. We'll accept you, and then hopefully you'll learn and you'll grow and you'll be transformed and you'll walk in the way of Christ. And that's what we do when we welcome everybody to the communion table. Because when I was growing up, you couldn't take communion unless you were a member of the church and you were, had been baptized and all that. Well, we don't say that. There are probably people that take communion at Celebration that haven't been baptized, that
Haven't gone through communion.
haven't gone, catechism, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, haven't gone through that and learned about it. They just come knowing they are hungry for something, and we've got food, and that, and it's spiritual food, but we've got it, and we offer it. And so I think that's a positive shift for many churches. Not all churches are there, but that was one of the big discussions in the early church. Well, what do you got to do to be a part? What do you have to know? What do you have? All these things. And now I think we're moving away from that. And I'm not saying that there haven't been pockets since the early church where they didn't make people do that, but I'm just saying now we're seeing this shift, and I think it's a good
On-the-job training.
on-the-job training.
When you say hospitality, to me, based on my background,
Mhm.
hospitality is serving
Okay.
people. And I feel like in Celebration, well, for instance, you always, I don't know, the last couple of years since COVID, is how long you've been saying that we're a church with extravagant
Mhm.
hospitality.
Mhm.
I mean, and it almost, whenever you say it, to me, it's like, well, we have to be that.
Yeah,
That's
we just have
that's
to
our
do.
charge.
That's the rule.
It's coming from the leadership, but
Yeah.
anyway, to me, I think that when people feel that and feel that welcome and
Mhm.
feel that recognition, like, when I see you, you recognize who I am, that moment in time. I know in that book, Blink, where you're making judgments on
Mhm.
people like super fast, in the blink of an eye, we all do it. But that moment of recognition when either we are recognizing that someone's new or, hi Barb,
Yeah.
I'm so glad to see you, that moment right there.
Right.
I think we do really well with that. I feel like a welcoming committee, I think having a committee doing that, that specific, that's their job, is a
Mhm.
great idea. But I also feel like so many people here at Celebration do that
I do too.
already.
I do too. I think people are really good at going over and speaking to somebody. And I know this because I have brought family and friends that weren't a part. And when we leave, they say, you know, all these people came up and spoke to me and said hi and asked me who I was, and
I almost worry that we pounce on them.
yeah.
Too much, like smother them. Oh, you're new.
Yeah,
We're so glad you're here.
that's right. Yeah, it is.
I worry about that.
It is.
Desperation.
It is interesting, and
I was excited when I read that you were doing this for the month of January. I was like, that's a great idea.
That's
good, good. And but yeah, Christmas Eve, I told you all that we had all our kids here, and so our son and his family came to the 5:30 service. And so when we leave, you know, they always tell me about what happened or whatever, and they said. And Stuart said somebody came up and spoke to him, and they were talking to him, and he said, well, actually, you know, I'm Jorene's son. And they're, oh, well, you know, we're so glad you're here. So, but it's not just the family, you know, I have friends that come, and they're just amazed at how many people come up and speak and say, you know, you're welcome, we're glad you're here, you know, welcome them. And so I think Holly's exactly right. I think we do well at that. And we should say, okay, we got that part. But it's not that we can't improve. It's not that we can't do it even better. I think one of the places that we have a little breakdown right now, and then I'm going to have to go, but is we have the visitors who come. We used to have that yellow card that they had to fill out. But it seemed to me that we didn't get all those because people have to hold it till the offering's passed at the end of the service, and then they put it in the offering. So maybe we should have them put it in the red book. So then I went to saying, just indicate in the red book if you're a visitor. We feel like we're missing people, that they're not writing that down. I don't know if more people wrote it down on a yellow card or not, but if we don't have any record of them, then we can't send a letter and say we were glad you were here, or we can't acknowledge their presence if we don't have at least an email address. Yeah. And so I feel like that's a place there's a little bit of a glitch, and that's what I'm hoping at the end of this time, maybe we'll come up with a better idea of what we need to do. Some churches have a table where if you're visiting, you go to that table and sign in, or, I mean, I'm just saying, there are all kinds of ideas, but we need some other way of recognizing people. And, you know, like a guy showed up last Sunday, I was here, and we didn't have Pastor's Cup. And he was here real early, I was the only one here, and he rang the bell, and he said, well, I came for the Pastor's Cup, and I said, we're not having it today because it's New Year's Day, and so, but we'll be back next week. But he's not here, you know, and I said, so please come back, and he said, I will, and I don't even know, he said, I'm gonna go, I said, you're welcome to come in and where it's warmer, and he said, well, I think I'll go get a cup of coffee and I'll be back, but I'm not even sure he came back to worship it, you know, and I really hated that, because the truth is, you have one chance.
To make a first impression.
You have one chance. And, you know, it's like Jay said, you know, he had that experience and I just never went back. And so we have one chance to really make people feel that we're glad they're here. And so I felt really bad about the guy that knocked on the door. I don't know his name. I should have asked his name. And, but anyway. So, and I don't mean to make you feel nervous or anxious about that, but, you know, it's like when I do funerals, it's like I've done hundreds, literally hundreds of funerals, and you can get kind of jaded about it, you know, like I've done funerals, I know, and then I always think, but that's somebody's daddy, that's somebody's mama. They're not looking at all the funerals. They don't care how many funerals you've done. This is the one that matters to them. And so it's kind of that way with visitors, you know. This is the day that matters to them. So anyway, so that'll make you feel real upbeat as we go. So let's say a prayer together. God, we thank you for the gift of this, your church, for the opportunity to serve you in this place and to welcome people to this place. We pray that you will find us faithful and that you will give us the courage and the willingness to step outside of ourselves a bit and to make others feel welcome. We pray this in the blessed name of Jesus. Amen. Okay, I'll see you in worship.